Awkward hours, awkward jobs. That's how an ambulance crew described their role working around the clock in the aftermath of Cyclone Tracy. It's just one story that's likely to be remembered this weekend when the Darwin Division of St John Ambulance celebrates its 60th anniversary. Alison Middleton reports it's also the name of a new book documenting the Ambo's history in the Territory.
From the air, Darwin looks like a giant rubbish dump. The massive cleanup continues as the city gathers its strength to build again.
A defining moment in Darwin's history. Cyclone Tracy was also a turning point for the city's St John Ambulance volunteers.
They worked day, night, treating people on the spot, sleeping in their ambulances in the back at night time on the stretchers in case of call out. They got very little sleep.
Prior to Tracy, the health department ran the ambulance service 5 days a week, with St John volunteers working nights and on weekends. The disaster that reshaped Darwin also forged a new future for the Ambos.
It was on Christmas Day after Tracy that St John took over the whole ambulance service in Darwin. St John got back online very quick. The hospital was out of action. After an argument with the hospital, they were given control of the ambulance service, and they've never let it go since.
Good afternoon. My name's Frank. I've booked a microfilm reader.
Frank Dunstan has trawled through the records, researching the history of St John Ambulance in the Territory. His book, Awkward Hours, Awkward Jobs, focuses on the work of volunteers.
As I got into it and found out more and more and more stuff, I was hooked. I was no longer the cynic looking for stories for the newsletter. I was a historian delving into the history of an absolute fascinating organisation.
It traces our history, and some of that history hasn't been known to us in a general way, but it's certainly been put together now that we can see that we've reached right back into the early days of the Northern Territory.
Today, St John has university-trained paramedics, as well as volunteers who provide first aid at sporting events and respond to natural disasters. But both these roles were once the domain of volunteers.
We employed the first paid AMBOs in early 1976, and we also had the first two full-time female ambulance officers in Australia were amongst them.
Today's ambulances are a far cry from the past.
The first ambulance they had was in about 1955. They got one of the blitz wagons. It was an ex-army truck. They were common in Darwin after the war. They only kept it for a year, then got rid of it. I don't blame them. Open tray-back vehicle, hard suspension, the last vehicle in the world you could imagine for an ambulance.
A combi van was also called for duty.
It was so slow on public duties at the racecourse, they reckon the ambulance is supposed to keep up the horses. The Vauxhall just could not do it. The horses left them for dead.
This year marks two big milestones for the volunteers. It's the Darwin Division's 60th anniversary and Tennant Creek's 50th. But they've been teaching first aid in the Territory since 1915.
For many years we thought that St John started in Darwin in 1953, but the work that Frank did showed that there was much effort to try and establish St John, and there are actually first aid courses run very early in the 1900s.
Peter Poole has spent more than 30 years volunteering with St John.
I finished rebuilding the house after Cyclone Tracy in 1978-79. I had some spare time looking for something to do.
In busy years, he clocked up close to 1,000 hours.
I've got to apologise to my wife and family for neglecting them for all those hours that I did with St John. So, the family's put up with a lot.
One of the standout memories was helping in the aftermath of the Bali bombings, when victims were flown to Darwin.
I said to this bloke, just tell us what you need. I can help you. Just tell me what you need. He said, well, when I get to hospital, make sure they take the bandages off and scrub what's left of my legs because I've been crawling through the sewers all night. They were tough people.
But you take over now.
The demand for volunteer first aiders is growing in a time-poor age of double incomes.
It's become very intense. The amount of work that was called upon to do to provide the first aid for the community is always more than we can actually manage.
It's a contribution recognised in Frank Dunstan's book, a slice of the Territory's history preserved for the future.
So that our modern volunteers can find out what the pioneers did and all the good times, the bad times that they put up with to develop and to build this organisation into what it is today.
The memories, the things you do, the places you go, you can give something back to society. The future will say thank you.